Hannah, and I'm going to be talking about the struggle between Jeong and Korea's zero-sum game mentality. So first of all, what is the zero-sum game? It's an idea that all resources are limited and that if somebody else controls or takes possession of those resources, then those are not yours, like they're denied to you. It's a sort of win at all costs mentality, where if you obey rules or obey laws, they become a hindrance in the competition for resources. So in a society which has a zero-sum game mentality, decisions are often made based on the demands for the competitive situation rather than on morals or ethics. And this creates, I think, a very tense relationship with Jeong, because Jeong focuses on unity and sort of being a good person to your family or your community. Some questions I have are, how do Jeong and the zero-sum game mentality relate to one another? How does the zero-sum game mentality contradict the innateness of Jeong in Koreans? And what are examples of the zero-sum game and Jeong interacting with one another in the history of Korea? And I hope to answer those in my essay. So one of the first sources I have, and one of the main sources for my paper, is a book by Carter Eckert, and his book is called Offspring of Empire. So it talks about the socioeconomic development of Korea from 1876 to 1945. Yeah, 1945. I'm focusing on chapter 8 particularly. He talks about Korea's class over nation system, and I feel like that is really closely related to the idea of Jeong. He talks about how the emergence of the Korean businessmen in Korea was sort of opposite to Confucian ideals and to the idea of Jeong, because a lot of businessmen started putting on this show of reluctance to their success, saying that they didn't really care about making money and they just wanted to better society and be a good person. And this shows how their innate sense of Jeong and wanting to appear virtuous was directly conflicting with their desire to increase their money and material wealth. Carter Eckert talks about how Korea's class system overpowers their feeling of nationalism in a way. So during the Joseon dynasty, we can see this, like class divisions were so set in stone that it created this environment where social upward mobility is super limited. We see this in the Yongbon, it's very concentrated. In modern Korea, we sort of see this isolation and competition in schools or workplace hierarchies and maybe housing too. And I argue that these relatively constant societal structures in Korea are caused in part by the zero-sum game mentality, where one group's success is seen as another's loss. So the next source I have is Korea's Place in the Sun by Bruce Cummings. A lot of very good information, but it's more of a philosophical approach than the previous book. And he has some controversial ideas, but part of his argument is that Korea has social groups and closeness with each other, so Jeong, before interference from international state bodies come in. And so after this interference, they're propelled into this competition for resources. And so they'll side with whatever group kind of helps them. And so I think the closeness that he talks about is Jeong, and then this sort of economic war is a representation of the conflict with the between zero-sum game and Jeong. Here are some more references I'm using. I'm sure I'll add more. And why is this relevant today? So South Korea in the last 30 years has arguably been the world's fastest growing economy. I think that when a country develops that quickly, economically and politically, such an intense rate, there's a lot of room for ideological tension or corruption to come in. And so understanding how Jeong interacts with the zero-sum game mentality, we might be able to prevent these corruptive practices. And also, I think understanding the relationship between Jeong and the zero-sum game mentality can allow us to understand human nature a little bit more and perhaps bridge some misunderstandings and some tensions between generations, not just in Korea but in Canada too, and understanding how we interact with our ideas of Jeong and how those are constantly changing. And yeah, I think it could benefit society a lot. And that's my presentation. Thank you.